It's 3 a.m. and you're awake again, not because of work, not because of the kids, because of the book. The one you've been meaning to write for 7 years, 10 years, maybe longer, and in the dark, in the quiet, when there is nothing left to distract you from yourself, you feel it. Not just that you haven't written it, that you have broken a promise to yourself again. And somewhere underneath that thought is a darker one. What if I never actually do this? I know all of this because I lived it. I was the writer waking up at 3 a.m. I was the one with the unfinished book and the broken promises and the 10,000 reasons why today wasn't the right day. And then I tried Grisham's routine. I didn't think it would work, but I had run out of other things to try. That feeling at 3 a.m., that guilt, that grief, that low hum of self-betrayal, it is not evidence that you are lazy. It is evidence that you are a writer. Because people who don't care about something don't lie awake at 3 a.m. thinking about it. They just don't think about it. You think about it constantly, which means the book is still alive in you, which means it is not too late. And listen, you're not alone. All writers feel resistance at one time or another, often every time they sit down to write. So why do we make the choice to play that game on our phones instead of writing? Why is it that the minute we sit down, we suddenly have an irresistible urge to vacuum under the couch? There is something happening in your brain every time you sit down to write. Something that has nothing to do with discipline. Something that no amount of motivation or willpower will fix. And until you understand what it is, you will keep ending up in the same place, awake at 3 a.m., wondering why. Here is what is actually happening. Your brain has learned that writing is dangerous, not physically dangerous, emotionally dangerous. Because for you, this book is not just a project, it is proof of something. Proof that you are creative. Proof that your life has meant something beyond the grind. Proof that the person you have always believed yourself to be, the writer, is real. That is an enormous amount of pressure to put on one blank page. And your brain, which is designed to keep you safe, looks at that page and thinks, this could hurt us. Let's find something safer to do. But I want to be specific about what hurt actually means here. Because it is not one fear, it is a whole family of them, and your brain has been quietly running through all of them every time you approach the desk. The first one is the fear most writers will admit to. What if I spend years on this and it still isn't good enough? What if I try my absolute hardest, give it everything I have, every spare hour, every ounce of creative energy I can scrape together after a full day of everything else, and it still doesn't work? What if the book in my head is better than any book I am actually capable of writing? That is a terrifying question, because right now, the book only exists in your imagination. And in your imagination, it is exactly what it was always meant to be. Finishing it means finding out the truth. And your brain, which would rather protect the dream than risk the verdict, says, let's not find out. But there is a second fear underneath that one. And this one is harder to say out loud. Right now, you can still tell yourself a story. The story goes like this. I would have written something great, if only I had the time, if only the conditions had been right, if only life hadn't gotten in the way. That story is painful, but it is also safe, because it means you are still a writer who hasn't written yet, not a writer who tried and failed. Not finished is not the same as not good enough, and some part of your brain knows this. Some part of your brain is protecting that distinction with everything it has. Because the moment you try, really try, full commitment, no more excuses, you cross a line. And on the other side of that line, there is no more story. There is only the book, and the book will be what it is. Your brain looks at that and thinks, the known failure is safer than the unknown one. The bird in your hand, the dream, the possibility, the writer you might still become, feels more valuable than the bird in the bush, because the bird in your hand cannot disappoint you, not yet. Then there is the identity fear. And this one runs deepest. For a lot of you, being a writer, even an unfinished one, even a someday one, is part of how you understand yourself. It is the thing that makes you different from everyone else just grinding through their days. You have something inside you, a story, a vision, a book that no one else could write. That belief is not vanity. It is oxygen. It is what gets you through the ordinary days. But here is the trap. If you try and the book is ordinary, if it is flawed and rejected and smaller than the dream, then what are you? Your brain runs that calculation and comes back with one answer. Do not risk it. Keep the dream intact. Stay the writer who is going to write. And then there is the fear nobody talks about. the one that has nothing to do with talent or identity or the dream, the one that is just about being human and tired. You work all day, not just the job, though there is that. You work at being a parent, a partner, a functioning adult in a world that asks a great deal of you before 9 a.m. Your nervous system is not a machine. It has a limit, and by the time you get to the hours that are supposed to be for writing, it is done, genuinely done. And writing is not rest. Writing is work, real cognitive work. The same kind of focused, effortful, decision-heavy work your brain has been doing all day in service of everything and everyone else. So when you sit down at the desk at 9 p.m. or 6 a.m. or during the one quiet hour you carved out of the middle of your complicated life, your nervous system does not see an opportunity. It sees a demand. More work. Harder work. Work with no guaranteed outcome. Work that might confirm your worst fears about yourself. And it rebels. Not because you are lazy, not because you don't care, but because you are exhausted and scared and you are being asked to do the most vulnerable thing a person can do. Create something from nothing and put your whole self into it, on a nervous system that is already running on empty. Of course it says no. Of course it finds the email, the research, the snack, the anything but this. It is not weakness. It is a nervous system doing the only thing it knows how to do when the demand is too high and the risk is too real. It protects you. So when you sit down to write and the resistance rises, now you know what it actually is. It is not laziness. It is not lack of discipline. It is not proof that you were never really a writer. It is a brain that loves you, but it is doing its job badly, mistaking the page for a threat, mistaking the attempt for the verdict, mistaking the risk of failure for failure itself. And the only way to retrain it is to show it, again and again, in small and undramatic ways, that the page is safe, that you can return and survive, that the attempt is not the verdict, that one imperfect page is not the end of the dream, it is the beginning of the proof. So you see, the most common reason writers don't write is fear, and the only way out of the hell of that fear is through it, to the other side. But there is still a problem. And this problem has nothing to do with fear. It has to do with the willpower that is required to overcome the fear. See, the truth is that willpower is not a personality trait. It is a product of your nervous system, your brain and body working together. It is not something you either have or you don't. It is not a moral quality. It is not evidence of character. It is a resource, a finite, depletable, measurable resource, like a battery. And that battery drains throughout the day. Every decision you make draws it down. Every act of self-control draws it down. Every moment you spend managing your emotions, your responses, your patience, draws it down. By the time most writers get to the hours that were supposed to be for writing, the hours after the work and the commute and the dinner and the children and the emails and the 10,000 small acts of being a responsible adult, the battery is nearly empty. And here's the part that nobody tells you. Willpower replenishes when you sleep, not when you rest, not when you watch television, not when you scroll your phone, when you sleep. Which means the version of you that has the most access to discipline, focus, and creative courage is the version of you that exists in the morning, before the day takes everything. Gary Keller wrote about this in his book, The One Thing. He argues that your most important work, the thing that matters most to you, deserves the first and best hours of your day, not the leftover hours, not the hours after everyone else has had their fill. The first hours, when the battery is full, when the nervous system is rested, when the brain has not yet spent its resources on everything else. This is not a productivity trick, it is biology. And it is exactly why Grisham writes in the morning. He understands something most writers learn too late. Asking an exhausted nervous system to do courageous, vulnerable, creative work at the end of a long day of living is asking too much. Not because you are weak, because you are human. That's why Grisham's rule works so well. It doesn't ask too much of an already taxed nervous system. I tried Grisham's routine. I didn't think it would work, but I had run out of other things to try. Grisham's routine is famously boring. Same time every morning, same chair, same desk, no phone, no internet, no excuses. One page before he does anything else. Most people hear that and think, okay, discipline, got it. But that completely misses the point. The routine is not about discipline. It is about closing every single door that your fear can walk through. And fear is very good at walking through open doors. The routine shuts them. Same time means you never negotiate the when. Same place means your body already knows what's coming before your brain catches up. An outline means you are never staring at nothing. You are staring at the next sentence. But there is one part of his routine that almost no one talks about. And it might be the piece that changes everything for you. 1 page. That is Grisham's daily goal. Not a chapter, not a scene, not a breakthrough. 1 page. And I know what you're thinking. 1 page is nothing. I need to write a whole book, but here's what you've actually been doing. You sit down with a goal like, make real progress today. Finally get serious. Write something worth keeping. Those are not goals. Those are feelings. And you cannot finish a feeling. So you write for an hour. Maybe you write 3 good pages, and something in you still whispers, it's not enough. You're still behind. You should have started years ago. And your brain records that. Writing then equals disappointment. Writing then equals never enough. Writing equals proof that I am failing at the thing that matters most to me. 1 page breaks that recording, because 1 page is something you can actually finish. And when you finish it, when you close your laptop having done exactly what you said you would do, your brain receives a completely different message. See, most writing advice treats writing like vegetables. Something good for you. Something you should do. Something that requires commitment and discipline and showing up even when you don't want to. And that framing, that vegetables framing, is exhausting before you even open the document. When I tried Grisham's method, I decided to treat writing like pizza. Something I got to do, something I looked forward to, something I would actually be disappointed to miss. And I combined that shift with one more thing. Every time I finished a page, every single time, I celebrated. Like I had just won the World Series. Because here is what I discovered. Your brain does not just respond to what you do. It responds to how you feel about what you do. If you finish a page and immediately move on to the next thing, your brain files it under routine, unremarkable, nothing special. But if you finish a page and you celebrate, your brain files it under, that felt amazing, let's do that again. That is not a trick. That is how the reward system works. Even more amazing, I found that once I started to write, once the page was underway, I didn't want to stop. The 1 page became 2, the 2 became 3. Some days I looked up and an hour had gone by. I didn't force it. It's just that I had finally made writing feel like the thing I was running toward instead of the thing I was running from. And I always gave myself permission to stop at the end of the first page. It's just that very often I didn't want to. By the end of the month, I had written 78 pages. And here is what that taught me about the 1 page rule. The goal is never really 1 page. The goal is to get yourself through the door. 1 page is just the minimum. The promise small enough that your brain will let you make it. The commitment low enough that your fear cannot talk you out of it. But once you are through the door, once the resistance has dropped and your hands are moving and the story is alive in the room with you, nobody is stopping you at 1 page. Nobody is pulling you out of the flow and sending you back to your day. You can stay as long as you want, and some days you will want to stay for a long time. That is the secret Grisham doesn't talk about. 1 page is the key. And it worked for me, not because I found more discipline, not because my life got easier or quieter or less complicated, because I stopped making writing feel like something I owed the world, and started making it feel like something the world owed me. That is what Grisham's routine gave me when I stopped being dutiful about it and started being delighted by it. I came back. I kept my word. I am someone who writes. That might sound small. It is not small. That is how trust gets rebuilt. I want to say something that writing advice rarely says. A lot of you are not just trying to write a book. You are trying to become trustworthy to yourself again. Someone who honors yourself, your soul, your dreams. The reason you want to be here on this blue ball, spinning around a star and hurtling through space. Let's be honest. You have made this promise before. Many times. This year. This summer. When the kids go back to school. When work finally calms down. When life gets out of the way. And life did what life always does. It stayed complicated. People needed you. The world got loud. Your own fear got louder. And the writer in you went quiet, not gone. Just quiet. Every broken promise made it a little harder to believe the next one. Until sitting down to write stopped feeling like an opportunity and started feeling like a reminder of everything you haven't done. So the real work is not writing a brilliant chapter. The real work is writing 1 imperfect page and coming back tomorrow and doing it again. Not until you feel ready. Until your brain stops waiting for proof and starts living inside it. I am someone who writes. The simple truth is, you can't say that until you start writing. And once you are writing, you can. So here's what I want you to try. Not a new system, not a 30-day challenge, not a complete reinvention of your life. Tomorrow, or tonight, or in 20 minutes, open the document. Tell yourself you only have to write for 5 minutes. And if you can, write 1 page. Not a perfect page, not a final page. Just a page that exists where before there was nothing. And when you're done, before you close the laptop, before you move on to the rest of your day, stop for just a moment and notice the truth. You wrote. The book that has lived in you for years is still there. The writer who wakes up at 3 a.m. is still there. And today, you didn't abandon her. That is how you write a book. Like and subscribe for more videos. I'm here every week, helping you free your soul and write